Chalmers has conceded Australia won't be immune from the economic shocks caused by Donald Trump's
victory could spell trouble for Australia. Why is the Treasurer warning of economic pain ahead? Imagine this. Australia, a strong economy with critical trade ties, now faces a potential economic shakeup. Why? Because Trump's recent victory has raised red flags among economists, and our Treasurer is sounding the alarm. If you're wondering what Trump's policies mean for Australia, from higher inflation to a tough foreign policy, stick around. We're diving into what could be a bumpy ride for Australia's economy, trade tensions, and their impact. Australia's economy relies heavily on international trade, particularly with the US and China, its largest trading partners. Trump's administration has a history of creating trade disruptions, especially with China, which left countries like Australia caught in the crossfire. If Trump pushes forward with more tariffs or trade restrictions on Chinese goods, China could retaliate as they did before. This would likely strain Australia's trade balance, especially in industries like mining, agriculture, and education, which thrive on exports to China. Australia's mining sector, a critical part of its GDP, exports vast amounts of iron ore to China. Imagine if China reduced these imports in response to US-led trade restrictions. Australia's mining sector could see reduced demand, causing potential job losses and a GDP decline. Australia might also have to navigate new export restrictions, which would further complicate trade logistics and reduce income from exports. Additionally, this scenario could push Australia toward diversifying its trade partners. However, finding stable, high-demand markets comparable to China's could take years. Trade disruptions might also force Australia to choose sides, challenging its balancing act between strong ties with the US and economic reliance on China. Currency and interest rates impact. When the US dollar strengthens under Trump's fiscal policies, such as tax cuts or interest rate adjustments, other currencies like the Australian dollar often weaken. Why does this matter? A weaker Australian dollar means higher import prices, impacting everyday costs for Australians, from groceries to fuel. Australian businesses that rely on importing materials or goods from overseas will also face increased costs, which may be passed on to consumers. Moreover, Trump's potential influence over the Federal Reserve could push US interest rates higher. If the US dollar becomes more attractive to investors, Australia's Reserve Bank may feel pressure to respond. Australia is already grappling with high interest rates in an effort to control inflation. If rates rise further to keep the Australian dollar stable, it could lead to even higher mortgage and loan repayments for Australians who are already stretched thin by the cost of living crisis. This ripple effect could see increased mortgage defaults and strain on the housing market. With housing being one of the biggest assets for Australians, any downturn could impact household wealth and spending power, ultimately slowing down Australia's economic growth. In short, Treasurer's concerns aren't just about high-level economic theory, they're about real, tangible impacts on households, businesses, and the overall Australian economy. Foreign policy and defense strategy. Foreign policy under Trump is known for its America First stance, often resulting in a more isolated US approach to international issues. This shift could impact national security and foreign relations for Australia, a country that heavily depends on US support in the Asia-Pacific region. If Trump's administration pulls back from its alliances or reduces involvement in Asia-Pacific defense strategies, Australia might face increased pressure to ramp up its defense spending. Australia's alliance with the US is not just symbolic, it's a critical part of its defense strategy, especially in a region where China is steadily increasing its influence. Without US backing, Australia might need to invest more in military assets, training, and intelligence, which requires reallocating significant government resources. For taxpayers, this could mean higher taxes or cuts in other services to cover defense costs. Another key concern is diplomatic strain. Trump's foreign policy often sparks global tensions, and if the US decides to impose restrictions or sanctions in the region, Australia could be indirectly impacted. Australia might also need to strengthen its alliances within the Asia-Pacific, possibly increasing ties with Japan, India, and South Korea to maintain a balance of power in the region. Geopolitical and global markets impact. As if economic pressures weren't enough, Trump's re-election could also trigger significant shifts in global markets and geopolitics, all of which have direct implications for Australia. While we've already covered the effects on trade, currency, and defense, let's look at how broader geopolitical shifts under Trump's leadership might affect Australian interests and its place on the global stage. Trump's approach to climate change, for example, has often been one of skepticism, and the US withdrawal from the Paris Agreement was a bold statement. If Trump continues to backtrack on global climate goals, Australia, a country already facing significant environmental challenges, could be forced to take a more active role in international climate negotiations. However, such leadership comes with costs. Environmental regulations, green energy initiatives, and climate adaptation projects may require large-scale investment and policy changes. Additionally, global pressure on Australia to reduce carbon emissions could intensify, creating potential tensions with its key resource-driven industries like mining. Countries like Australia, which rely on a smooth flow of global goods, could face higher tariffs or be caught in the midst of US trade disputes with other nations. If global markets become more unstable, Australia may have to adjust its strategies for maintaining its economic growth while ensuring its industries remain competitive. This could involve either diversifying export markets or reassessing trade partnerships to safeguard against the unpredictable nature of global markets under a Trump-led US. On a broader scale, international relations in the Asia-Pacific could become more tense. Real-life impact on Australians. So, what does all this mean for everyday Australians? Think about rising mortgage payments, pricier groceries, and costlier imported goods. Families may find their budgets stretched as interest rates climb, with fewer resources for savings or leisure. Job security could become a real concern for those employed in trade-reliant sectors, especially in mining and agriculture. This economic ripple effect could also hit Australian businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, which often rely on affordable imports and steady consumer demand. When costs rise, businesses might face hard choices, from raising prices to potentially laying off staff, impacting the wider job market. Trump's win is more than a US event. It's a global economic force that could bring Australia into choppy waters. The Treasurer's warning isn't just political chatter. It's a sign of real economic impacts that could hit home. Are we ready for what's coming? Only time will tell. Could Australia really withstand another economic storm from overseas? Tell us what you think in the comments. Is it time for Australia to rethink its international strategies? Or should we brace ourselves and hope for the best? If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more updates, and turn on the notification bell to stay ahead of global events that impact us all.